Hey everyone, and welcome back to the channel. You may have noticed that there have recently been advertisements added to the videos, and hopefully you were excited to see those advertisements because that means we were able to monetize the channel. Now that the channel is making money, we're going to be doing a lot more giveaways, and we're going to be doing a giveaway of 10% of the total channel revenue. But in order to be eligible to win that, you'll have to be a member of the Patreon page, which is going to be launching on February 1st. So keep an eye out for that. Now, I know it doesn't seem like much with $2.54 being the total revenue at this point, but honestly, I was pretty stoked that that wasn't zero. And it's a big day for the channel, and I'm excited to see this number grow as we get better at no-gi jiu-jitsu. So I wanted to do a little thought experiment with you all. Say we had someone with no prior experience and we had 6 months to train them to take on a black belt that's been training for 20 years. And our goal is to beat that black belt, not by points, but by submitting them. Now, this sounds a little unrealistic, but the answer, the solution to this, may be a little more simple than you would imagine.
Just stand up.
Now, obviously, I'm just kidding, but if you haven't seen this dude, Michael Wong's page, he's got some pretty entertaining content, so go check him out. But the goal of this video is to outline a training curriculum that we could teach someone, and after 6 months of training, they would be able to submit a black belt that's been training for 20 years. Now, this is not going to be an easy task, so we need to outline some expectations that we have for ourselves. Now, the person that we're trying to beat is at the top of the mountain in jiu-jitsu. They have been training a very long time in the classical formula of jiu-jitsu where you take the person down, you pass their guard, you hold them down, and ultimately submit them. Now, for us to go into it with the mindset that we're going to impose this classical formula of jiu-jitsu upon them is very unrealistic. And it's more likely we're going to be the person that is getting taken down, that's getting their guard passed, that's getting stuck in the bottom of the mount and ultimately submitted. But luckily for us, jiu-jitsu does give the bottom player the ability to be dangerous from their back. So we got that going for us.
Which is nice.
Another thing we have going for us is that our opponent does not respect us. So we don't really have to worry about them running away from us, which is nice. So we can structure our training around the assumption that they're going to be engaging with us and wanting to do jiu-jitsu. So now that we've established that we're going to be on the bottom of the fight, tradition would tell you that we should start our training with closed guard, right? That's the position we want to be in if we're on the bottom of the fight. But I think the problem with focusing on closed guard is that it's typically a position where the bottom player wants to be there and the top player does not. So when you have a position where one person wants to be there when the other person does not, that creates a situation where the bottom person is focused on offense while the top person is 100% focused on defense. So even though I think most people would agree that Craig Jones is a better grappler, if his opponent is 100% focused on defense, then it's very, very hard to submit them. They make sure that their head is in the correct position to keep themselves safe. They make sure their arms are staying disciplined, and they wait for you to open up your guard so that they can disengage, run away, and then start to pass from a more advantageous position for them. Now, you'll hear Danaher talk about this principle in boxing, where if someone is 100% focused on defense in boxing, it's hard to knock them out. But as soon as they try to hit you, that's when they open themselves up to be counterpunched. So when talking about the closed guard where the top player is 100% defensive and is much more experienced than us, it's going to be hard for us to do anything meaningful from that position. Now, I would even argue that it's going to be difficult to break through with a submission, even from a more dominant position like the mount, because we're dealing with someone who is so much better than us at jiu-jitsu, and they're 100% focused on defense. Now, Gordon Ryan, who is considered the best no-gi grappler in the world, was able to break through here with an arm triangle from mount, but this was his third attempt. So even if we did get lucky and pass the guard and end up mounted on someone who has been training 20 years longer than us, I think it's very, very unlikely that we're going to be able to submit them from that position. Now, half guard is a very interesting position because people like Craig Jones have built a name off of attacking from half guard. But half guard is also a very dominant passing position as well. So the top player is often seeking half guard as a way to initiate their guard passing. Now, since there are good things both the top player and bottom player can do from half guard, I think it's the perfect position to structure our training program around. Now, the idea is you got to give a little to gain a lot. So we're going to throw our partner a bone, and instead of putting them in close guard, we're going to put them in half guard where they can start to attack us as well. And when they attack us, they start to extend their limbs, which we can hopefully capitalize on. So now the next question we have to address is which type of half guard are we going to use? Are we going to use a high knee shield? Are we going to use a low knee shield? Are we going to use a butterfly half guard? Are we going to use a deep half guard? There's a lot of different styles of half guard that we can structure our training around. Now, Craig Jones pretty much built his name off of the low knee shield, and Gordon Ryan built his name off of butterfly half guard. And I really enjoy studying these guys, so I think these two would be our best bet when moving forward with our training structure. Now, when we study the way Craig Jones uses his low knee shield, you can see it's very hard for his opponent to move away from him. And he uses that low knee shield to force his opponent to engage. But as he's working into the legs, that knee shield foot pummels in as a butterfly hook. Now, if we have that butterfly hook in initially, it makes it very easy for our opponent to disengage with us. But like we talked about, our opponent's been training 20 years longer than us. They don't really respect us. We're going to assume that they're going to engage and want to do jiu-jitsu. Now, I think it's fair to assume that they're going to have a decent understanding of leg locks as well. So by playing a low knee shield, you're giving them the option to attack your foot. And getting into a leg lock shootout with this person isn't what we want to do. So because we're assuming they're going to engage with us, and because we want to keep our feet as safe as possible, I'm going to recommend that we focus our study on the butterfly half guard. And a lot of times it's pretty easy to get there because, like we talked about, half guard is a great passing position. So a lot of times if we just lay down on our hip, our opponent will put themselves in our butterfly half guard. Now, if they're more aggressive and they step inside of our feet, forcing us into a De La Riva kind of scenario, we can always take that De La Riva leg back to the inside to put us in a butterfly half guard. So like we talked about, half guard is a good passing position for the person on top as well. And the last thing we want to do is get to our desired position only to get smashed and our guard passed. So we need to understand what the top player needs in order to make this a dominant passing position for them. Now in half guard, there are two battles going on, one with the upper body and one with the lower body. The top player is winning the upper body battle if they're able to pin our head and shoulders to the ground. And often they do this through a crossface and an underhook. The top player is winning the lower body battle if they're able to pummel their foot in as a butterfly hook. As the bottom player, it's okay to lose the lower body battle, it's okay to lose the upper body battle, but it's unacceptable to lose both of them at the same time. As soon as you're losing both of these battles, half guard becomes a very uncomfortable position for you, and a lot of times will result in you getting your guard passed. So this is our starting position here, where our cross shoulder post makes it difficult for our opponent to win the upper body battle, and our butterfly hook makes it difficult for them to win the lower body battle. Now typically when trying to pass our guard, our opponent will try to win one of these battles at a time. If they start by trying to win the lower body battle and threaten to pass our legs, we use our arms to make sure they can't win the upper body battle while we recover our leg position. Now, if they start by trying to win the upper body battle and pin our head and shoulders to the ground, a huge benefit of butterfly half guard is it gives us the winning position with the lower body right away, and we can use that butterfly hook to recover our arm position. Now, as a general rule, whatever side our opponent's head is on, that is the side we're going to use our butterfly hook to off balance them. And sometimes we might even be able to enter directly into their legs as opposed to just recovering our hand position. Now, maybe we were being lazy, maybe we didn't have that butterfly hook in to begin with, or maybe our opponent just had some tricks up their sleeve and they were able to win the upper and lower body battles. A lot of times what the top player does to amplify their crossface pressure is they'll take their knee off the ground and really make it an uncomfortable position for us. But by doing this, they give us space to reinsert our butterfly hook and win the lower body battle, which we can use to then recover our upper body positioning as well. So just keep an eye out for this because it's there more often than you think. So now that our opponent isn't jumping past our guard every second, we can start to think about how we're going to attack them. Now, there are a lot of ways to attack from butterfly half guard, and one that we spent some time on before is the arm drag, and I think that should be a primary focal point of our training. But the basic idea is you're attacking their arm as they're using it to pass your guard. Now, whether that's an arm drag, whether it's a shoulder crunch, whether it's a kimura, there are many ways to attack the arm, but the end result is probably going to be us entering into the legs, and these should be the primary focus of our training. Another great way to enter into the legs from butterfly half guard is by using underhooks or overhooks. But sometimes we get in our own way when we're trying to elevate our partner using either an underhook or an overhook. By having our knee on the shoulder of our opponent, it makes it very difficult for them to pass our guard. However, it also makes it very difficult for us to use our underhook or overhook effectively. So again, this goes back to the idea that you have to give a little to gain a lot. If you allow your opponent to pass your knee, yes, it makes it easier for them to pass your guard, but it also allows you to use underhooks and overhooks to enter into their legs. Another attacking idea that I wanted to throw out there for you guys is that when we're playing butterfly half guard, a lot of times our opponent is going to be able to put their hand on our hip. This allows them to start getting past our knee and start trying to win the lower body battle. Now, since we can predict this, we can take advantage of it, and if we time it right, we can use it to initiate our arm drag. So the primary threat we're going to pose to our opponent is the heel hook. So a big part of our study is going to be the Ashigarami game. Now, we're not trying to get into a big leg lock shootout with this person, but after 6 months of training, we're trying to create the ability to threaten them with a heel hook. So our goal is to develop enough of an understanding of the positions to give us the ability to break our opponent in a competitive environment. There it is! But also allow us to play with them safely on a day-to-day basis in the training room. Now, these go hand in hand. If you're able to break someone's leg, a lot of times it's because you were able to control them prior to breaking them. Now, if you're able to control someone, you should be able to practice them safely on a day-to-day basis. Now, if our opponent is deciding to kind of sit back on their heels and not engage too much with our butterfly half guard, we can always use our feet to push them back. Now, if we push them backwards and they respond by driving back into us, we can use that to enter into the legs, and hopefully they're not as good as PJ Barch and we're able to complete the entry. If they don't respect our push, we can use that to come up on top of the fight. But again, if we end up on top, the likelihood that we're going to be able to pass the guard and submit them is very, very small. So instead of trying to pass their guard, I recommend using it as an opportunity to enter into the legs, and if it works, great. If not, you end up on the bottom in butterfly half guard, ready to reboot the system. Now, the big theme behind this video is that we're trying to create situations where our opponent is not thinking 100% about defense and they're trying to attack us. And when they attack us, it opens up opportunities for us to counterattack them. Now, unfortunately, this idea does not only work in our favor. Our opponent is able to capitalize on this as well. So as we're going for these attacks, it's likely that they're not going to work. And it's likely that our opponent is going to find opportunities to capitalize on our attacks and use them to pass our guard and end up in very dominant positions. So it's important for us to understand how to escape these dominant positions so that one, we're able to survive, but two, so that we are able to trust in our attacks. And we're not scared that if they don't work, we're going to end up in a situation that we can't get out of. Now, traditionally, you start off by trying to escape the mount into closed guard. Now, this is probably going to be difficult for us to achieve against someone who's been training for 20 years and we've only been training for 6 months. However, we did make it a little bit easier on ourselves because we've already talked about that for our goals, we prefer half guard over closed guard. And lucky for us, half guard is much easier to recover than trying to recover your closed guard. Another thing that we have going for us is that there are escapes that lead directly into leg entanglements. And since this is the primary attacking strategy we have against our opponent, it fits perfectly into our strategy. One of my favorite escapes is the kipping escape for this exact reason, and I'll leave a link to the video in the description below. If we have 6 months to train for an opponent who's been doing jiu-jitsu for 20 years, our strategy is going to be to develop a game from butterfly half guard, where we can make it difficult for them to pass while at the same time generating attacks into their legs. Now, if they end up past our guard, we have strategies to recover back to our butterfly half guard or enter directly into an attack on their legs. If we find ourselves on top of the match, we're going to use it as an opportunity to enter into the legs. If it works out, great. If not, we find our way back to butterfly half guard and reboot the system. Now, this strategy definitely won't work 100% of the time, but after 6 months, I think that we could give you the ability to generate a very viable threat against someone who's been doing jiu-jitsu much longer than yourself. And if you have an attack that they have to respect, that is something that you should be proud of.